Julie here with Sirius Telus Moon Soul Hour Mars Day, and the ascendant is with Venus in Gemini. Oh, Mercury is 18 degrees Taurus, and Sol 21 degrees Taurus, slowly approaching Beta Persei, and at 26 degrees Taurus. I'd like to remind us, midheaven Rahu, Jupiter exalted in Cancer, Moon in Pisces. I'd like to remind us that Beta Persei, in context where the feminine is honored, is also joy, and perhaps I'm biased because I have a lot of family there, is the joy of the family in spirit and in matter, is the knowing that, one of the things I got from my mother is that a home is love, and this is where I'd like to think of this as even invitation for people to watch, if they can have writing exercise in their own languages, or maybe with languages that they come up with. Think of story of creation that is, and I will try to do so as well, that is honoring feminine, honoring masculine in spirit and in matter. Because in Beta Persei we create currency. And here is something that also people may want to know. When I think of currency, I think about how, let's say, a coin of silver, accessible metal, can be a possibility for people to have a third option. If they want to exchange goods, they can exchange it on voluntary basis or charity basis, basically like the neighbors that say, oh, do you have sugar by you? Or do you have salt? And salt and sugar and coffee, they were used as currency. And then, or people can say, okay, I have, or our village has a lot of fish. Oh my God. את בסדר? לבנדר? נעמי.
מה? לא, אני בסדר. אבל זה מסוכן, זה פשוט מסוכן. אתה יודע, מזל שיש לי משקפיים, איך אתה מוצא לי את שתי העיניים? אני לא יודעת מה לעשות עם זה.
אני לא יודעת.
ואחותי, הם נורא...
אני אבדוק אם יש...
שירי, תקשיבי לי. עוד שבוע, שבועיים, אני פותחת...
ממלא, בלי איומים כרגע?
לא
אני אבדוק...
איומים.
I'm recording.
טוב.
I'm recording.
טוב.
Okay. Note to self, check what to do with kittens.
אל תספרי את כל הדברים האלה. אל תספרי,
אוקיי.
זה חגיגה לאנשים.
אוקיי.
אל תספרי.
Okay. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I said I'm recording. But this is exactly the issue. And another thing was, if people have, let's say, fish, and then other people have, let's say, I don't know, nutmeg, then they can exchange goods. Currency is simply this notion of being able to have wealth redistribution in a way that allows flexibility. Because if I give, let's say, a coin of silver, and with that silver, they can, people can exchange it for many things, many goods, then then that silver has its value from the human relations. As long as the human relations are honoring of one another, then the currency will have value. This is why when Dutch East India was looting the silver from Spain, it was looting the silver from basically the banks would have less, and the people that would have silver would be able to buy with it more. And so this is also wisdom of Deneb Algidi, is wealth redistribution. So people think about wealth redistribution as taken from the rich and given to the poor. No, because those that have silver but honor this more than human lives, than food, because in relations they grew up where, well, let's say what so, then they're not rich. They have silver. And those that have love but don't have food, then for their own silver, without stealing, to be able to buy more, to be able to buy food, as there is food, is good. And those are people that hoarded the silver, and say, okay, they hoarded the silver, they kept people from being able to buy food. Now they did all this for the silver, now silver is gone. So all the coping mechanism is gone. The so-called lost their riches. But if they would go to communities where people share food, then they will learn different reality. As long as they don't mistreat, yes, of these people. Now, another thing to do is the spirit and matter, because when the infant or when children are brought with a blessed union, and blessed union not blessed by the priest or the imam, before the priest or the imam, that both of them really like to be with one another, but also erotically, then birth is not punishment. And by the way, even with the approximates, we see this. My parents wanted to have me. My mother wanted to have me. She came to hospital. She birthed me. She went out of hospital. The best dream of American industry. There they pay so much money, and then when the woman has had the baby, they say, "Okay, bye bye." My mother was naturally like that. For the same day, she came, she did. She wanted to birth me in a forest, but it was too painful, so she went to hospital. Fortunately, they still had the old building where from the window you could see what's outside. And my father, my Dutch father, um, not my biological father, but the man who wanted to have babies with my mom was my father. He looked outside and he saw the dew, and he named me my Hebrew name, although he's Dutch, Tali, for the environment of what is happening. And later in my life, I would learn that people that live, let's say in tribes, some tribes would name the baby according to the science outside. And it's basically the fresh water that is created by the turning of night to day. And indeed, I think about it that I talk about unification of the sects. Both my sun and my moon are in the Mercury Decan, according to Ostinkopic Decan teaching. They would be, I think, in the Mercury Decan of Taurus and the Cancer, respectively. And Mercury is also the planet that goes between sects. If there is Sun and then Moon, Saturn and then Mars, Venus and then Jupiter, then Mercury goes between them. My Mercury is Venus Decan, which is about of Aries, which is about new union. Mars can be separation, but it can also be new form of union. And here, and I'm night chart, so I think my Mars is in Saturn related decan. No, in Jupiter related decan of Scorpio, the last decan of Scorpio. My Jupiter and decan of Moon in Capricorn, I think, yeah, opposite my Moon. So I'm also very thankful to Threads of Fate that is doing a great job with the decans, and to the people that help me, because a lot of this help is coming in spirit. Because when there was spiritual warfare, or there is, I insisted to abolish Inquisition, meaning not to convert by torture. And so when we think about stories of creation that honor feminine, honor in spirit and in matter, that the union is blessed in spirit and in matter, then infants are safe. When we reach the spiritual through embodiment, and I like people like Gigi Young that talk about embodiment. Um, and this happens when the practices, and it's important to know that in places where people believe in subjugation of the feminine, infants are raped, also in the astral, and this is a part of what can be the story of families with beta per se. Not all, yes, again, resonates, but this is a deacon of spirit and matter, and if the infant is raped, they will expect it's done for so that the adults will be able to commit crime to the children, um, and avoid the consciousness of the children to masquerade themselves in energy. And this is why when people seek to heal, they are threatened with jail, although the child might have not been the person that committed the crime, or in families where this was physical, then sometimes the child was, or the places where somebody is tortured, then there's mind control, and then let's say a person is homeless and they try to find a home, so they go and see vacant properties or whatnot, and they try to listen to channeling or guidance, particularly if they were tortured at hospital, so they don't believe that, let's say, the mental health would facilitate something that is curing, because then they get castration. And this is where things begin to be where a person thinks they're going to find a partner, and then other people see them differently, maybe, and or people want this person to be in that place, and that person just looking to find a house, or not knowing how to have house, not knowing how to have work, because they were not safe, they were harassed or bullied or um, and so with beta per se is very important because the spirit and matter, but also the language. Beta per se is associated with I think Jupiter and Saturn, which is belief, philosophy, religion, and orthodoxy, but also Venus. It's a Venus sign. In horary astrology, I think Venus and Saturn are friends. Um, and this is where um, the basically it reminds us that the anything of tradition, Saturn, or religion, Jupiter, has to honor in spirit and in matter the feminine. This is where wealth is. Now, if this is violated and people are not believed, or the people are imprisoned because they were raped as infant, then the currency does not hold value. And we are about to reach Chiron in Taurus. Look at Chiron, 28 degrees Aries. Ingressed, I think, today. Um, and this is something to think about, because what we can do is also for people to not be falsely imprisoned, is to have creation stories that honor the feminine, and um, defending the infants, not from Lilith, that was the woman that would not be subjugated, but from rape of infants, even in the astral or in spirit. And um, Sun is reminding us of the fathers, and in the 12th house, again, when there's no rape in spirit and in matter, then the 12th house is hidden allies. This is why, for example, Kira Reiberg from Threads of Fate have stellium in Aquarius, and is my 12th house. With outer planet there, I listen, because if I'm not occultistically raped, then if I'm not raped, then I can listen to the people with the Aquarius placements, and because they see something that's on my blind spot. Um, and this is where um, this is where if a person is not raped, let's say at a hospital, then they will not fear tending to their mental well-being. Basically meaning they would not commit crazy things, they would not commit crazy acts. Um, when society is not aware of this rape of the infants, then all kinds of weird behaviors begin in society without any, it looks like a chaos without any way to sort it out. But this goes to the story of creation, conception, and it has a lot to do with how, whether the currency has value, whichever currency, by the way, even I'm sorry, even people trade. You know, the Inuit has said a story, and Sedna reminds us that when the father traded Sedna, the entire village had no food. And even today, some Inuit people tell it as, "Oh, Sedna didn't want to marry anyone. She was picky. She was choosy." But and um, what if Sedna was raped as infant because her father wanted power? Now, the father here is not necessarily the father or the biological father. It can be a father figure. It can be a solar figure. It can be a Regulian figure. This is why Beta Persei is squaring, Regulus is squaring Magha Nakshatra. It's also a good time to read more about Kritika Nakshatra. And again, sorting the wheat from the chaff, because astrology was created in the context of basically picking the dates for rape of infants, for ritual abuse. But just for this reason, we understand where are the things to transmute, and what are the things that with a story of creation that each and every person can write. We can change. The Huguenots did not change the scripture to include the women, even though women had more. Even in the 12th century, I looked at Netherlands chart for 12th century, Venus in Libra in the 10th, Saturn exalted in Libra. And the women there, the Dutch women in particular, had more rights than other women. Now, but the Huguenots did not rewrite the scriptures regarding women, because the women were living, their secular life, basically a relatively secular life than the Catholics. Of course, there were Christians, there were some Jews convert to Protestants and so on. And the fact that they ignored the written word is um, proved to be problematic, because um, Inquisition is persecution of the feminine. It's basically taking the child to help a state, saying, "Oh, pray to your God, pray to your God." Nothing helps, and then they say, "Oh, pray to Satan, or pray to Jesus, or pray to this, or pray to that," and then it's kind of like, well, it helps as long as they commit crime, or if they go of the, and then they're in prison, because, and this is enabling a depopulation, um, only resulting from creation stories that were meant to undermine. Kritika Nakshatra. From Beta Persei, um, which is sidereal Aries, to 10 degrees sidereal Taurus, which is Gemini. Tropical Gemini, I don't know exactly what degree. Ruled by Sun and presided over by the fire deity Agni. Star of fire, or the Qadr, sharp, transformative, and purifying energy. Ambitious, independent, courageous, and possess strong leadership qualities. Ruling planet is the Sun. Represents knife, dagger, or razor. Aggressive, analytical, sharp-tongued, goal-oriented, and transformative. Fire within. Highly motivated, energetic, constantly looking for new challenges. Independent leaders. Honest and blunt, very direct, can be critical, sometimes causing conflict in relationships. And warrior spirit. Lord Kartikeya, the commander of the celestial forces. So, of course, it has relations to currency, it has relations to military, because the currency is, how do we find weapon? How do we find training of soldiers? To breathe fresh air, for example, um, the air is yang, but the movement of the air, the chaos in the movement of the air is yin. When we honor the feminine, we breathe fresh air. In societies where they don't honor the feminine, people struggle even with the breathing. This is why Jupiter in Capricorn can be in detriment, because it can be growing in upbringing of religions that are traditional but restrict breathing. And we would have to look at Saturn, for example. In my chart is in Saturn, in Scorpio sign. But some people, it can be in Saturn sign or at home sign. Um, and this is where the belief system, or the tradition, but also the ritual tradition, can be um, restrictive of the breathing, particularly if they harm the infants. And that can cause, let's say, even parent to have struggle, and they might not know that their infant is being raped, and it can affect the breathing, even of the parent. Um, Also, when people are trafficked, they sometimes take drugs, even by inhalation or by injection. And yeah, and the withdrawal symptoms, as they try to, can be very difficult because the attacks from invisible forces that rape them are targeted as people, even if they would go to, let's say, psychiatrists, they would receive castration, but they would not be receiving a season of these attacks or the rape, and this is where psychiatry fails. And then people begin to think maybe it's by design, maybe they want to depopulate, maybe they want to harm, maybe they have sacrificed these people, and if they did, then destruction of humanity becomes reasonable. And this is why the beta per se can lead to dead bodies upon dead bodies when in societies where the creation story is not honoring of the feminine, and the practices are not honoring of the feminine, masculine, spirit, and in matter.